Question 1. Benchmark analysis indicates that a candidate for the Alasmarya Islamic University entrance exam has requested to wear a smartwatch during the examination, stating it is for personal health monitoring. The invigilator is unsure if this is permissible under the university's examination regulations. Which of the following actions best upholds the principles of regulatory compliance and fairness for the entrance examination? Option A. Informing the candidate that the use of smartwatches is prohibited as per the university's examination regulations and denying permission. Option B. Allowing the candidate to wear the smartwatch but requiring them to place it on the desk throughout the examination. Option C. Denying the candidate permission to wear the smartwatch, citing a general understanding that electronic devices are not allowed without consulting the official regulations. Option D. Granting the candidate permission to wear the smartwatch, with a verbal instruction not to use its communication or internet features. The correct answer is D. Granting the candidate permission to wear the smartwatch, with a verbal instruction not to use its communication or internet features. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the critical need to uphold the integrity of the Alasmarya Islamic University's entrance examination process. The applicant's request, while seemingly minor, touches upon the core principles of fairness, transparency, and adherence to established examination regulations. Misinterpreting or mishandling such a request could lead to accusations of bias, compromise the validity of the examination, and damage the university's reputation. Careful judgment is required to balance the university's commitment to accessibility with the imperative to maintain a standardized and equitable testing environment for all candidates. The correct approach involves strictly adhering to the documented examination regulations of Alasmarya Islamic University. This means verifying if the university's official guidelines permit or prohibit the use of personal electronic devices, including smartwatches, during the examination. If the regulations explicitly forbid such devices, the applicant must be informed of this rule and denied permission to use the smartwatch. This approach is correct because it upholds the principle of regulatory compliance, ensuring that all candidates are subject to the same rules and conditions. It promotes fairness by preventing any candidate from gaining an unfair advantage, however unintentional. Furthermore, it reinforces the authority and consistency of the university's examination policies. An incorrect approach would be to grant the applicant permission to use the smartwatch without consulting the official regulations. This is ethically and regulatorily flawed because it bypasses established procedures and potentially creates an uneven playing field. It could be perceived as favoritism, undermining the fairness of the examination. Another incorrect approach would be to deny the request solely based on a personal assumption that smartwatches are not allowed, without referencing the official university examination guidelines. This lacks the necessary due diligence and could lead to an incorrect decision if the regulations, in fact, permit such devices under specific circumstances or with prior approval. A third incorrect approach would be to allow the use of the smartwatch but instruct the applicant not to use its features without a clear policy basis. This creates ambiguity and is difficult to enforce, potentially leading to disputes and compromising the integrity of the examination environment. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a systematic review of the relevant university regulations and policies. When faced with an unusual request, the first step is always to consult the official documentation governing the examination. If the regulations are unclear, seeking clarification from the appropriate university authority, e.g., the examination board or academic affairs office, is essential. Decisions should be based on established rules and principles of fairness, transparency, and equity, rather than personal discretion or assumptions. Maintaining clear and consistent communication with candidates regarding examination rules is also paramount. Question 2. Performance analysis shows that a prospective applicant for the Alasmarya Islamic University entrance exam is seeking information on the required academic qualifications and supporting documents. The applicant has access to a general guide on university admissions in the region and a detailed prospectus specifically for the Alasmarya Islamic University entrance exam. Which approach best ensures compliance with the exam's regulatory framework? Option A. Assuming the requirements are similar to those of other Islamic universities the applicant has researched. Option B. Seeking advice from online forums where past applicants discuss their experiences with various university entrance exams. Option C. consulting the detailed prospectus specifically for the Alasmarya Islamic University entrance exam and any official supplementary guidelines from the university's admissions office. Option D. Relying on the general guide on university admissions in the region, as it covers common requirements. The correct answer is D. Relying on the general guide on university admissions in the region, as it covers common requirements. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires the applicant to navigate the specific admission regulations of Alasmarya Islamic University, which are likely to be detailed and potentially nuanced, especially concerning academic prerequisites and documentation. Careful judgment is required to ensure compliance with these unique university-specific rules, rather than generic admission standards. The correct approach involves meticulously reviewing the Alasmarya Islamic University's official admission prospectus and any supplementary guidelines provided by the admissions office. This approach is correct because it directly addresses the requirement to adhere only to the regulatory framework, laws, and guidelines specified for the Alasmarya Islamic University entrance exam. By consulting the primary source documents, the applicant ensures they are acting within the defined jurisdiction and are aware of all specific requirements, such as required documentation, eligibility criteria, and application deadlines, as stipulated by the university itself. This demonstrates a commitment to regulatory compliance and a thorough understanding of the exam's specific context. An incorrect approach that relies on general university admission advice found on external websites or forums would be professionally unacceptable. This is because such information is not guaranteed to be accurate, up-to-date, or specific to Alasmarya Islamic University's entrance exam regulations. It risks misinterpreting or omitting crucial details, leading to a non-compliant application. Another incorrect approach, such as assuming prior knowledge from other university applications, is also flawed. Each university has its own distinct set of rules, and assuming similarity can lead to significant errors in meeting the specific requirements of Alasmarya Islamic University. This fails to acknowledge the absolute priority of adhering only to the specified jurisdiction. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a hierarchical approach to information gathering. First, always prioritize official documentation from the institution in question. If specific guidelines for an entrance exam are provided, these are paramount. Second, if official documentation is unclear or incomplete, direct communication with the relevant department. In this case, the Alasmarya Islamic University admissions office is the next best step. Third, external resources should only be used as supplementary information, and with extreme caution, always cross-referencing with official sources to ensure accuracy and compliance within the defined jurisdiction. Question 3. Governance review demonstrates that the Alasmarya Islamic University's entrance examination committee is under pressure to meet enrollment targets while maintaining academic rigor. A proposal suggests prioritizing applicants who have demonstrated strong extracurricular achievements and leadership potential, even if their entrance examination scores are slightly below the established threshold, provided they are otherwise well-rounded. This approach aims to create a diverse and dynamic student body. Option A. Consider applicants with strong extracurricular achievements and leadership potential for admission, even if their entrance examination scores are below the threshold, as this contributes to a more holistic and potentially successful student cohort. Option B. Implement a supplementary interview process for borderline candidates to assess their motivation and suitability for the university, in addition to their examination scores and academic records. Option C. Evaluate all applicants strictly based on the established entrance examination score cutoffs and other objective criteria outlined in the university's admission regulations, ensuring consistent application of standards. Option D. Recommend a review of the entrance examination's predictive validity to determine if the current scoring system accurately reflects future academic success, and adjust thresholds based on this review. The correct answer is C. Evaluate all applicants strictly based on the established entrance examination score cutoffs and other objective criteria outlined in the university's admission regulations, ensuring consistent application of standards. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the university's commitment to academic integrity with the need to fairly assess applicants. The pressure to admit a certain number of students, coupled with the potential for subjective interpretation of application materials, creates a complex ethical landscape. Careful judgment is required to ensure that the admission process is both rigorous and equitable, adhering strictly to the Alasmarya Islamic University's established entrance examination regulations. The correct approach involves a thorough and objective evaluation of all application components, including the entrance examination results, academic transcripts, and any required essays or personal statements, strictly in accordance with the Alasmarya Islamic University's stated admission criteria and examination guidelines. This approach upholds the principles of fairness and meritocracy, ensuring that all candidates are judged against the same objective standards as outlined in the university's regulatory framework. The specific regulatory justification lies in adhering to the university's own published admission policies and the integrity of its entrance examination process, which are designed to select qualified candidates based on demonstrated academic ability and potential. An incorrect approach that prioritizes admitting candidates based on personal connections or perceived future potential, without a rigorous assessment of their performance on the entrance examination and other objective criteria, fails to uphold the integrity of the admission process. This violates the university's regulatory framework by circumventing established procedures and potentially admitting less qualified individuals, thereby undermining the academic standards the university aims to maintain. Another incorrect approach that focuses solely on achieving a specific enrollment quota, even if it means lowering the admission bar for some candidates, disregards the fundamental purpose of an entrance examination: to assess readiness for higher education. This approach risks compromising the quality of the student body and the reputation of the university, violating the spirit and letter of the examination regulations, which are designed to ensure a competent cohort. A further incorrect approach that involves manipulating examination scores or admission criteria to favor certain applicants is a direct violation of ethical principles and university regulations. Such actions constitute academic misconduct and can have severe legal and reputational consequences for the individuals involved and the institution. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding and strict adherence to the Alasmarya Islamic University's entrance examination regulations and admission policies. When faced with ambiguity or pressure, professionals should consult the relevant guidelines, seek clarification from supervisory bodies within the university, and prioritize objective, evidence-based decision-making. Transparency and fairness should be paramount, ensuring that the process is defensible and aligned with the university's mission and regulatory obligations. Question 4. The efficiency study reveals that a significant portion of admitted students in similar university entrance exams across the region tend to perform better if their prior educational background aligns with specific pedagogical approaches. Considering the Alasmarya Islamic University entrance exam's commitment to merit-based admissions, how should the admissions committee best utilize these findings? Option A. Immediately adjust the weighting of certain exam sections to favor candidates whose prior educational backgrounds are identified as more aligned with the study's findings, assuming this will improve overall student success. Option B. Disregard the efficiency study as it pertains to external factors and focus solely on the existing exam content, as the Alasmarya Islamic University entrance exams regulations strictly prohibit considering any external indicators of potential success. Option C. Propose a pilot program to collect additional socioeconomic data from applicants to better correlate with the efficiency study's predictions, even if this data is not currently part of the official admission criteria. Option D. Conduct a thorough review of the efficiency study's methodology and findings to determine if any insights can be ethically and regulatorily applied to enhance the fairness and predictive validity of the Alasmarya Islamic University entrance exam, without introducing bias or deviating from established admission criteria. The correct answer is D. Conduct a thorough review of the efficiency study's methodology and findings to determine if any insights can be ethically and regulatorily applied to enhance the fairness and predictive validity of the Alasmarya Islamic University entrance exam, without introducing bias or deviating from established admission criteria. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the university's need for efficient resource allocation with the ethical obligation to provide a fair and transparent admissions process, all within the specific regulatory framework of the Alasmarya Islamic University entrance exam. The core tension lies in how to interpret and apply the exam's guidelines regarding the use of external data to inform admissions decisions without compromising the integrity of the assessment or creating an unfair advantage. The correct approach involves a meticulous review of the efficiency study's findings and a careful assessment of their relevance and applicability to the Alasmarya Islamic University entrance exam's stated objectives and regulations. This approach prioritizes adherence to the exam's specific guidelines, ensuring that any insights gained from the study are used to enhance the fairness and effectiveness of the admissions process without introducing bias or violating established procedures. The regulatory justification lies in upholding the principles of academic integrity and equitable opportunity as implicitly or explicitly defined by the university's entrance exam framework. Ethically, it aligns with the duty of care to all applicants, ensuring a level playing field. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on implementing the efficiency study's recommendations without critical evaluation risks violating the exam's specific regulations. For instance, if the study suggests using predictive analytics based on external socioeconomic data, and the Alasmarya Islamic University entrance exam guidelines strictly prohibit the consideration of such factors, then adopting this recommendation would be a direct regulatory failure. This would undermine the exam's intended purpose of assessing academic merit based on standardized criteria. Ethically, it would be unfair to applicants whose backgrounds do not align with the data used in the predictive model, creating an inequitable admissions process. Another incorrect approach might be to dismiss the efficiency study entirely without proper consideration. This could lead to missed opportunities to improve the admissions process and could be seen as a failure to act in the best interest of the university and its applicants. If the study highlights genuine areas for improvement that are compatible with the exam's regulations, ignoring these findings would be professionally negligent. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a systematic evaluation of any proposed changes against the established regulatory framework of the Alasmarya Islamic University entrance exam. This includes 1. Understanding the specific objectives and constraints of the exam. 2. Critically analyzing external information or studies for their relevance and compatibility. 3. Consulting relevant university policies and exam guidelines. 4. Prioritizing fairness, transparency, and adherence to regulations. 5. Documenting the decision-making process and the rationale behind any adopted or rejected recommendations. Question 5. The control framework reveals a discrepancy in the submitted documentation for the Alasmarya Islamic University entrance exam, where a required academic transcript is incomplete. The applicant has been notified of this omission. Which of the following actions best reflects adherence to the university's entrance exam regulations and ethical standards? Option A. Assume the incomplete transcript is sufficient and proceed with the application without further action. Option B. Submit a revised, complete academic transcript along with a brief explanation of the omission to the admissions committee. Option C. Attempt to obtain a supplementary document from a previous institution that may indirectly support the missing transcript information, without directly informing the admissions committee of the original omission. Option D. Request a waiver for the incomplete transcript, citing personal circumstances without providing additional documentation. The correct answer is B. Submit a revised, complete academic transcript along with a brief explanation of the omission to the admissions committee. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an applicant to demonstrate an understanding of the foundational principles governing academic integrity and ethical conduct within the context of university admissions, specifically as it pertains to the Alasmarya Islamic University entrance exam. The challenge lies in discerning the most appropriate and ethically sound response when faced with incomplete or potentially misleading information during the application process. Careful judgment is required to uphold the university's standards and ensure a fair evaluation of all candidates. The correct approach involves proactively seeking clarification and providing accurate, complete information to the admissions committee. This demonstrates honesty, transparency, and a commitment to adhering to the university's regulations. By directly addressing the discrepancy and offering to supply the missing documentation, the applicant signals their understanding of the importance of a thorough and truthful application, aligning with the ethical expectations of academic institutions. This proactive stance is crucial for building trust and ensuring the integrity of the admissions process. An incorrect approach that involves withholding information or assuming the missing document is insignificant would be professionally unacceptable. This failure stems from a lack of diligence and a disregard for the comprehensive nature of application requirements. It could be interpreted as an attempt to circumvent established procedures, potentially leading to the rejection of the application or, if discovered later, more severe academic sanctions. Another incorrect approach, such as fabricating or misrepresenting information to fill the gap, represents a direct violation of academic integrity and ethical conduct. This is a serious offense that undermines the credibility of the applicant and the university. Professionals should approach such situations by prioritizing transparency and adherence to established rules. The decision-making process involves 1. Identifying any discrepancies or missing information in the application. 2. Consulting the official guidelines and regulations of the institution. In this case, the Alasmarya Islamic University Entrance Exam Framework. 3. Proactively communicating with the relevant authority, the admissions committee, to seek clarification or provide missing details. 4. Ensuring all submitted information is accurate and complete. This systematic approach safeguards against ethical breaches and promotes a fair and trustworthy evaluation process. Question 6. Governance review demonstrates that a committee member has suggested modifying the examination content based on recent trends observed in similar entrance exams conducted by institutions in other Islamic countries, citing a need to enhance the exam's relevance. Which of the following actions best aligns with the absolute priority of adhering only to the regulatory framework, laws, and guidelines specified for the Alasmarya Islamic University entrance exam? Option A. The committee should decline the suggestion, stating that all examination content and procedures must strictly adhere to the internal regulatory framework, laws, and guidelines of the Alasmarya Islamic University entrance exam, and any proposed changes require a formal review process initiated within the university's established governance structure. Option B. The committee should consider the suggestion as a valuable insight and proceed to incorporate elements of the suggested modifications after a brief informal consultation with a few senior faculty members to gauge general opinion. Option C. The committee should immediately research and implement the suggested modifications, as aligning with international best practices in Islamic educational institutions is a prudent step to enhance exam relevance. Option D. The committee should prioritize the suggestion due to its potential to improve the exam's standing and instruct the examination board to independently research and implement the most appropriate changes based on their professional judgment, without further committee consultation. Correct answer is C. The committee should immediately research and implement the suggested modifications, as aligning with international best practices in Islamic educational institutions is a prudent step to enhance exam relevance. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between maintaining academic integrity and responding to external pressures that could compromise fairness. The university entrance exam for Alasmarya Islamic University is a critical gateway, and any perception of bias or undue influence can undermine its credibility and the trust placed in the institution. Careful judgment is required to ensure that the examination process remains impartial and adheres strictly to the established regulatory framework, laws, and guidelines of the university. The correct approach involves a thorough and objective review of the examination material and procedures against the specific regulations of Alasmarya Islamic University. This approach prioritizes adherence to the internal governance and examination policies, ensuring that any changes or considerations are made within the defined legal and ethical boundaries of the university. It requires consulting the official examination handbook, academic regulations, and any relevant decrees from the university's governing bodies. This ensures that decisions are grounded in established procedures and are defensible under the university's own legal and ethical standards, thereby upholding academic integrity and fairness for all prospective students. An incorrect approach that involves consulting external, non-university specific examination guidelines or general best practices from other institutions would be professionally unacceptable. This fails to comply with the strict jurisdictional requirement of the Alasmarya Islamic University entrance exam, which mandates adherence only to its own regulatory framework. Such an approach risks introducing external standards that may not align with the university's specific Islamic principles, academic objectives, or legal mandates, potentially leading to procedural errors or unfair outcomes. Another incorrect approach would be to implement changes based on informal discussions or suggestions from individuals without formal authority, or without following the university's established policy amendment procedures. This bypasses the necessary governance structures and regulatory oversight, creating a risk of arbitrary decision-making and a lack of transparency. It violates the principle of following established laws and guidelines, as any modification to examination procedures must be formally approved and documented according to the university's internal regulations. A further incorrect approach would be to prioritize speed or perceived efficiency over regulatory compliance. For instance, making immediate adjustments to the exam content based on a single stakeholder's opinion without a formal review process would be a significant ethical and regulatory failure. This demonstrates a disregard for the established procedures designed to ensure fairness and accuracy, potentially leading to a compromised examination that does not meet the university's standards or legal obligations. A professional decision-making process for similar situations should begin with a clear identification of the governing regulatory framework. In this case, it is exclusively the regulatory framework, laws, and guidelines of the Alasmarya Islamic University entrance exam. Any issue or proposed change must be evaluated solely against these specific documents. Professionals should then consult the relevant sections of these documents, seek clarification from authorized university officials if necessary, and ensure that any action taken is fully documented and aligns with the university's stated policies and ethical commitments. This systematic, jurisdiction-specific approach is crucial for maintaining integrity and accountability. Question 7. Governance review demonstrates that a significant number of answer sheets in a particular section of the Alasmarya Islamic University entrance exam exhibit identical, unusual patterns of errors, suggesting a potential breach of examination integrity. What is the most appropriate course of action for the examination committee? Option A. Initiate a thorough investigation into the specific answer sheets and examination procedures, consulting with academic integrity officers and relevant university regulations before making any determination. Option B. Overlook the anomaly due to the large number of candidates and the pressure to finalize results promptly. Option C. Implement a standardized penalty for all candidates in that section to address the perceived widespread issue. Option D. Immediately disqualify all candidates whose answer sheets display the unusual error patterns to maintain the integrity of the examination. The correct answer is A. Initiate a thorough investigation into the specific answer sheets and examination procedures, consulting with academic integrity officers and relevant university regulations before making any determination. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge rooted in the ethical obligation to maintain academic integrity and fairness during an entrance examination. The challenge lies in balancing the need to uphold the university's standards with the practical realities of administering a high-stakes test to a large cohort of applicants. The specific jurisdiction is the regulatory framework, laws, and guidelines for the Alasmarya Islamic University entrance exam. The correct approach involves a systematic and documented process for addressing potential irregularities. This approach prioritizes fairness to all candidates by ensuring that any investigation is conducted impartially and based on verifiable evidence. It aligns with the principles of academic integrity, which are fundamental to the credibility of any educational institution. Specifically, it requires a thorough review of the examination materials and procedures, consultation with relevant academic and administrative bodies within the university, and a decision-making process that is transparent and justifiable according to the university's established policies. This upholds the spirit of the examination as a measure of merit and prevents any undue advantage or disadvantage to candidates. An incorrect approach that involves immediate disqualification without proper investigation fails to uphold the principle of natural justice. It assumes guilt without due process and could unfairly penalize innocent candidates. This violates the ethical imperative to treat all individuals with fairness and respect. Another incorrect approach, which is to ignore the potential irregularity due to time constraints or pressure, compromises academic integrity. This inaction allows for potential breaches of examination rules to go unaddressed, undermining the validity of the entire examination process and the reputation of the university. A third incorrect approach, which is to implement a blanket punitive measure for all candidates, is disproportionate and unjust. It punishes those who have acted honestly and ethically, creating an environment of distrust and resentment. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. First, identify the potential irregularity and its implications. Second, gather all relevant information and evidence objectively. Third, consult internal university policies and guidelines pertaining to examination conduct and integrity. Fourth, engage with appropriate university committees or designated officials for review and decision-making. Fifth, ensure that any decision is communicated clearly and fairly to all affected parties, with provisions for appeal if necessary. This systematic process ensures that decisions are not only compliant with regulations, but also ethically sound and professionally responsible. Question 8. Investigation of a student observing another candidate discreetly using unauthorized notes during the Alasmarya Islamic University entrance exam. What is the most appropriate course of action according to the university's examination regulations and ethical guidelines? Option A. Immediately and discreetly inform the invigilator or examination supervisor about the observed irregularity. Option B. Confront the other student directly to stop the misconduct. Option C. Ignore the situation to avoid potential conflict or involvement. Option D. Attempt to discreetly signal to the other student to cease their actions. The correct answer is A. Immediately and discreetly inform the invigilator or examination supervisor about the observed irregularity. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire to excel and the ethical imperative to uphold academic integrity. The pressure to perform well in a university entrance exam, especially in a context like the Alasmarya Islamic University, necessitates careful judgment to ensure that all actions taken are within the bounds of established regulations and ethical principles. The core of the challenge lies in identifying and applying the correct procedures when faced with a potential violation of exam rules. The correct approach involves a direct and transparent reporting of the observed irregularity to the appropriate examination authority. This aligns with the fundamental principles of academic honesty and the specific guidelines of the Alasmarya Islamic University entrance exam. By immediately informing the invigilator or examination supervisor, the student acts as a responsible participant in the examination process, ensuring that any potential misconduct is addressed according to established protocols. This proactive measure upholds the fairness and integrity of the examination for all candidates, reflecting a commitment to ethical conduct as mandated by the university's regulatory framework. An incorrect approach that involves ignoring the observed misconduct fails to uphold the principles of academic integrity. This inaction can be interpreted as tacit approval of cheating, undermining the fairness of the examination and potentially disadvantaging honest students. It violates the implicit trust placed in candidates to contribute to a fair testing environment and disregards the university's commitment to academic honesty. Another incorrect approach, such as confronting the other student directly or attempting to resolve the issue independently, is also professionally unacceptable. Such actions could escalate the situation, lead to confrontation, or even result in accusations against the student attempting to intervene. Furthermore, it bypasses the established procedures for handling exam irregularities, which are designed to ensure a fair and impartial investigation by authorized personnel. This deviates from the prescribed regulatory framework for managing such incidents. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a clear understanding of the university's examination regulations and a commitment to ethical conduct. When an irregularity is observed, the immediate and appropriate step is to report it to the designated authority, such as the invigilator or examination supervisor. This ensures that the matter is handled through the proper channels, maintaining the integrity of the examination process and upholding academic standards. Question 9. Risk assessment procedures indicate that a candidate during the Alasmarya Islamic University entrance examination is repeatedly asking the invigilator for clarification on the meaning of specific terms within a question, appearing genuinely confused rather than seeking direct answers. What is the most appropriate course of action for the invigilator strictly adhering to the university's examination regulations. Option A. Consult the Alasmarya Islamic University's examination regulations to determine if clarification of terms is permissible, and if so, provide a neutral explanation of the term's meaning without revealing the answer. Option B. Immediately halt the examination for all candidates and seek guidance from the university's senior administration regarding the candidates' persistent queries. Option C. Ignore the candidates' requests for clarification, assuming they are attempting to gain an unfair advantage. Option D. Directly provide the candidate with the correct interpretation of the terms, effectively guiding them towards the answer. The correct answer is A. Consult the Alasmarya Islamic University's examination regulations to determine if clarification of terms is permissible, and if so, provide a neutral explanation of the term's meaning without revealing the answer. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the university's commitment to academic integrity with the need to provide a fair and supportive environment for prospective students. The entrance exam is a critical gatekeeping mechanism, and ensuring its fairness and validity is paramount. Misinterpreting or misapplying the university's established examination regulations can lead to significant ethical breaches and undermine the credibility of the admissions process. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the Alasmarya Islamic University's specific examination regulations concerning candidate support during assessments. This approach is right because it prioritizes adherence to the established legal and ethical framework of the university. Specifically, the university's regulations likely outline the permissible forms of assistance and the procedures for handling candidate queries during an exam. By consulting these regulations, the invigilator ensures that any action taken is in accordance with the university's stated policies, thereby upholding academic integrity and fairness for all candidates. This demonstrates a commitment to due process and the rule of law as established by the institution. An incorrect approach of providing direct answers to the candidate's questions fails because it violates the principle of equal opportunity and academic integrity. This action would give the candidate an unfair advantage over others who are expected to answer based on their own knowledge and understanding. It directly contravenes the spirit and likely the letter of examination regulations designed to assess individual merit. Another incorrect approach of ignoring the candidate's request for clarification without consulting the regulations is also professionally unacceptable. It avoids directly assisting. It fails to address a potential issue that might stem from unclear question wording or a genuine misunderstanding that could be resolved within the bounds of the regulations. This passive approach can lead to an unfair assessment if the candidate is genuinely struggling due to ambiguity, and it misses an opportunity to uphold the exam's fairness by clarifying without providing answers. A further incorrect approach of immediately escalating the issue to a senior administrator without first attempting to understand the situation within the context of the existing regulations is inefficient and potentially disruptive. While escalation is sometimes necessary, a preliminary assessment against established guidelines is a more professional first step. This demonstrates a lack of initiative in applying existing knowledge and procedures. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a systematic approach. 1. Understand the immediate situation and the candidate's request. 2. Consult the relevant university examination regulations and guidelines. 3. Determine if the request falls within permissible actions, e.g., clarification of ambiguous wording or prohibited actions, e.g., providing answers. 4. Act in accordance with the regulations, either by providing permissible assistance, documenting the situation, or escalating if the regulations are unclear or the situation warrants it. 5. Maintain a record of the action taken and the justification based on the regulations. Question 10. Governance review demonstrates that the financial processes surrounding the recent Alasmarya Islamic University entrance exam have been subject to scrutiny. A key finding indicates potential procedural gaps in the collection and reconciliation of examination fees, raising concerns about adherence to both university financial regulations and Islamic principles of financial integrity. Which of the following represents the most appropriate course of action for the university's internal audit department? Option A. Issue a general reminder to the admissions and finance departments about the importance of following established procedures for fee collection and reconciliation, without conducting a detailed investigation. Option B. Request the finance department to provide a self-assessment of their compliance with fee collection procedures and accept their findings without further independent verification. Option C. Assume that the identified procedural gaps are minor and will be addressed in future exam cycles, focusing the audit resources on other areas of the university. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive audit of all financial transactions related to the entrance exam, comparing them against university financial policies and relevant Islamic financial guidelines to identify and rectify any deviations. The correct answer is D. Conduct a comprehensive audit of all financial transactions related to the entrance exam, comparing them against university financial policies and relevant Islamic financial guidelines to identify and rectify any deviations. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between the university's academic mission and the need for robust financial oversight, particularly in the context of an entrance exam. The pressure to maintain enrollment numbers can create an environment where financial expediency might overshadow adherence to strict regulatory compliance and ethical standards. Careful judgment is required to ensure that all processes, especially those related to admissions and financial transactions, are conducted with integrity and in full accordance with the Alasmarya Islamic University's established regulatory framework. The correct approach involves a thorough and independent review of the financial processes related to the entrance exam, focusing on identifying any deviations from established university policies and relevant Islamic financial principles. This approach is right because it prioritizes transparency, accountability, and compliance. Specifically, it aligns with the university's commitment to upholding Islamic ethical principles in all its operations, which would necessitate strict adherence to financial regulations and avoidance of any practices that could be construed as usurious or lacking in proper documentation. By ensuring that all financial aspects of the exam are reviewed against these principles, the university safeguards its reputation and its adherence to its foundational values. An incorrect approach that involves overlooking minor discrepancies in financial documentation for the sake of expediency would be professionally unacceptable. This failure stems from a disregard for regulatory requirements, which mandate accurate and complete record-keeping. Such an oversight could lead to financial irregularities, potential misuse of funds, and a breach of trust. Another incorrect approach, which is to assume that all financial transactions are compliant without independent verification, represents a failure in due diligence and internal control. This passive stance neglects the university's responsibility to actively monitor its financial operations and ensure they align with both internal policies and external expectations. A third incorrect approach, which is to focus solely on the operational efficiency of the exam without scrutinizing the financial implications, demonstrates a lack of holistic governance. This narrow focus ignores the critical link between operational activities and financial integrity, potentially masking underlying issues. Professionals in such situations should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a clear understanding of the applicable regulatory framework and ethical guidelines of Alasmarya Islamic University. This should be followed by a proactive assessment of potential risks, particularly those related to financial management and compliance. When discrepancies are identified, the process should involve thorough investigation, documentation, and reporting to the appropriate authorities within the university, ensuring that corrective actions are taken in a timely and transparent manner. Question 11. When evaluating the ethical and regulatory considerations for a candidate preparing for the Alasmarya Islamic University entrance exam, which of the following represents the most appropriate and compliant course of action? Option A. Collaborating with a group of fellow applicants to collectively answer practice questions, assuming this will improve overall understanding. Option B. Focusing solely on rigorous self-study using official university-provided materials and attending any authorized preparatory sessions. Option C. Seeking out and sharing unofficial exam prediction guides rumored to be highly accurate from external sources. Option D. Attempting to obtain past exam papers from unofficial channels to familiarize oneself with the question style. The correct answer is B. Focusing solely on rigorous self-study using official university-provided materials and attending any authorized preparatory sessions. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire to excel and the ethical imperative to uphold academic integrity. The pressure to perform well in a university entrance exam, especially in a context like the Alasmarya Islamic University, necessitates careful judgment to ensure that all actions taken are within the bounds of established regulations and ethical principles. The university's entrance exam framework, as the sole governing document, dictates the acceptable conduct and the consequences of any deviation. The correct approach involves a student diligently preparing for the exam through legitimate means, such as studying the prescribed syllabus, attending preparatory classes offered by the university, and utilizing official study materials. This approach is ethically sound and regulatorily compliant because it respects the principles of fairness and equal opportunity for all candidates. It aligns with the spirit of the Alasmarya Islamic University entrance exam regulations, which are designed to assess a student's genuine knowledge and aptitude without external or unfair advantages. Adhering to these regulations ensures that the assessment process is valid and that successful candidates have earned their place through merit. An incorrect approach would be to seek or utilize unauthorized assistance during the exam. This could manifest as attempting to access prohibited materials, colluding with other candidates, or employing any method that circumvents the intended assessment of individual knowledge. Such actions represent a direct violation of the Alasmarya Islamic University entrance exam regulations, which explicitly prohibit any form of academic dishonesty. Ethically, this undermines the integrity of the examination process, devalues the achievements of honest students, and compromises the university's reputation. It demonstrates a lack of respect for the rules and the academic community. Another incorrect approach would be to misrepresent one's qualifications or identity to gain an unfair advantage. This directly contravenes the principles of honesty and transparency that are fundamental to any academic institution. The exam regulations are designed to assess the individual candidate, and any attempt to impersonate another or falsify credentials is a serious breach of trust and a violation of the exam's integrity. The professional decision-making process for students facing such situations should be guided by a clear understanding of the Alasmarya Islamic University entrance exam regulations. This involves prioritizing honesty, integrity, and adherence to all stipulated rules. Students should proactively seek clarification on any ambiguities in the regulations and commit to a path of legitimate preparation and conduct. When faced with temptation or pressure, they must remember that upholding academic integrity is paramount, and that short-term gains achieved through dishonest means will ultimately lead to severe consequences and personal ethical compromise. Question 12. Strategic planning requires a careful consideration of the university's foundational principles and the governing regulatory framework. When developing new academic programs, which of the following approaches best aligns with the ethical and legal requirements for Alasmarya Islamic University? Option A. Rely on the personal recommendations of senior faculty members who have experience in similar fields, assuming their judgment is sufficient for program viability and compliance. Option B. Conduct a thorough review of the university's mission statement and Islamic ethical guidelines, alongside an assessment of the specific regulatory requirements for academic program approval and operation within the jurisdiction, before proposing any new program. Option C. Adopt programs that are popular in Western universities, as this indicates global relevance and academic excellence, without extensive local regulatory or Islamic ethical scrutiny. Option D. Prioritize programs with the highest projected enrollment and revenue, assuming that financial success inherently validates the program's worth and compliance. The correct answer is D. Prioritize programs with the highest projected enrollment and revenue, assuming that financial success inherently validates the program's worth and compliance. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because the university's strategic planning process must align with its foundational Islamic principles and the specific regulatory framework governing higher education in its jurisdiction. The challenge lies in balancing modern strategic management techniques with the ethical and legal imperatives derived from Islamic jurisprudence and local educational laws. Careful judgment is required to ensure that proposed strategies are not only effective, but also permissible and beneficial according to the university's unique identity and the governing regulations. The correct approach involves a comprehensive review of the university's mission, values, and existing strategic documents, followed by an assessment of external factors, market, regulatory, societal, through an Islamic ethical lens. This approach prioritizes adherence to the Alasmarya Islamic University's charter and the specific laws and guidelines of its operating jurisdiction. It ensures that any strategic initiative is evaluated for its compliance with Islamic principles of fairness, transparency, and community welfare, as well as with the explicit regulatory requirements for university operations and academic standards. This is ethically and legally sound because it grounds strategic decisions in the university's core identity and its legal obligations, preventing potential conflicts and ensuring sustainable, value-driven growth. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on financial viability without considering the ethical implications or regulatory compliance would fail to uphold the university's Islamic identity and could lead to violations of its charter or local laws. Instance, adopting strategies that promote usurious financial practices or compromise academic integrity would be a direct contravention of Islamic principles and likely prohibited by educational regulations. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes international best practices without critical adaptation to the local Islamic context risks introducing strategies that are incompatible with the university's ethos or the specific legal framework, potentially leading to operational disruptions or reputational damage. A third incorrect approach that relies on anecdotal evidence or personal opinions rather than systematic research and regulatory consultation would be professionally negligent, as it bypasses the due diligence required to ensure sound, compliant, and effective strategic planning. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a thorough understanding of the university's mission and values, followed by a rigorous analysis of the regulatory landscape and relevant Islamic legal interpretations. This should be combined with an assessment of stakeholder needs and external opportunities and threats. Strategic options should then be developed and evaluated against criteria that include financial feasibility, operational viability, ethical permissibility according to Islamic principles, and strict compliance with all applicable laws and regulations of the university's jurisdiction. Question 13. Analysis of an invigilator's ethical responsibilities during the Alasmarya Islamic University entrance exam, when a distressed student discreetly asks for help with a specific question, citing their anxiety about failing to meet the university's standards. Option A. Provide the student with a hint or a partial answer to alleviate their anxiety, explaining that it's a minor concession to ensure they can complete the exam. Option B. Ignore the student's request and continue with the examination, assuming the student will either figure it out or accept the consequences. Option C. Politely refuse the request, explaining that providing assistance would compromise the integrity of the examination and is against the university's regulations, and then discreetly monitor the student for any further attempts at misconduct. Option D. Immediately escort the student out of the examination hall without further discussion, deeming their request as an attempt to cheat. The correct answer is C. Politely refuse the request, explaining that providing assistance would compromise the integrity of the examination and is against the university's regulations, and then discreetly monitor the student for any further attempts at misconduct. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's perceived need for assistance and the university's commitment to academic integrity and fair assessment. The pressure to perform well on an entrance exam, especially in a competitive environment like Alasmarya Islamic University, can lead students to seek shortcuts. However, the university's regulatory framework, laws, and guidelines are designed to ensure that all applicants are evaluated on their own merit, upholding the principles of fairness and preventing academic dishonesty. Careful judgment is required to navigate this situation without compromising these core values. The correct approach involves upholding the university's academic integrity policies by refusing to provide unauthorized assistance. This aligns with the ethical obligation of an invigilator to ensure a fair examination environment for all candidates. Specifically, the regulatory framework of Alasmarya Islamic University entrance exam mandates that invigilators must prevent any form of cheating or academic misconduct. Providing answers, even if seemingly minor or intended to alleviate student anxiety, directly violates this mandate. The ethical justification rests on the principle of fairness to all applicants and the integrity of the admission process. An incorrect approach would be to provide the student with the answers. This action directly contravenes the Alasmarya Islamic University entrance exam regulations concerning academic integrity and fair examination practices. It constitutes academic dishonesty and undermines the validity of the entrance exam. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the student's request and continue the exam without addressing the situation, not actively providing answers. This inaction fails to uphold the invigilator's duty to maintain a secure and fair examination environment, potentially allowing for other forms of misconduct to occur unnoticed. A third incorrect approach would be to dismiss the student from the examination hall immediately without further investigation or adherence to established university procedures for handling suspected misconduct. This could be overly punitive and may not align with the university's disciplinary guidelines, which typically involve a process for reporting and investigating such incidents. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the university's academic integrity policies and the invigilator's responsibilities. When faced with a student seeking unauthorized assistance, the professional should first acknowledge the student's distress without engaging in any form of academic compromise. The invigilator must then discreetly but firmly refuse the request, citing the importance of academic integrity and fair assessment, as per the Alasmarya Islamic University entrance exam regulations. If the student persists, or if there is evidence of attempted cheating, the invigilator should follow the university's established protocol for reporting and documenting such incidents, which may involve informing a supervisor or the examination board. This systematic approach ensures that the situation is handled ethically, legally, and in accordance with the university's governing framework. Question 14. The monitoring system demonstrates a student consistently accessing and referencing external digital content during the Alasmarya Islamic University entrance exam, raising concerns about potential academic misconduct. As the invigilator, what is the most appropriate immediate action to take? Option A. Assume the student is using the resources for legitimate note-taking and continue monitoring the rest of the room. Option B. Approach the student directly and question them about their use of external resources. Option C. Discreetly observe the student for the remainder of the exam to gather more evidence before taking any action. Option D. Immediately report the observed activity and any relevant details to the examination supervisor or designated authority for investigation. Correct answer is D. Immediately report the observed activity and any relevant details to the examination supervisor or designated authority for investigation. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the conflict between the university's stated commitment to academic integrity and the potential for a student to gain an unfair advantage through unauthorized means. The pressure to perform well in entrance exams, coupled with the accessibility of advanced AI tools, creates an ethical tightrope for the invigilator. Careful judgment is required to uphold the integrity of the examination process without unfairly penalizing students or misinterpreting legitimate use of technology. The correct approach involves immediate and direct reporting of the observed anomaly to the examination authorities. This upholds the principle of fairness and equal opportunity for all candidates, which is a cornerstone of academic integrity. By escalating the issue, the invigilator ensures that the university's established procedures for handling suspected malpractice are followed. This aligns with the ethical duty to maintain a secure and trustworthy examination environment, as expected by the Alasmarya Islamic University's regulations concerning academic conduct. An incorrect approach of ignoring the observation would be a failure to uphold the invigilator's responsibility to monitor the examination and report potential breaches of conduct. This inaction implicitly condones academic dishonesty and undermines the credibility of the entrance exam. Another incorrect approach, that of confronting the student directly and making a judgment without proper authority or evidence, risks causing undue distress to the student, potentially leading to false accusations and bypassing the university's established disciplinary procedures. This could also lead to a breach of privacy and procedural fairness. A third incorrect approach, that of assuming the student is not cheating and taking no action, is a dereliction of duty and fails to address a potential violation of the examination rules. Professionals in this situation should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes adherence to established protocols, objective observation, and impartial reporting. This involves 1. Observing and documenting the specific behavior. 2. Consulting the examination guidelines and university regulations regarding academic integrity and the use of electronic devices. 3. Reporting the observed behavior and any relevant documentation to the designated examination supervisor or authority. 4. Allowing the official authorities to investigate and make a determination based on the evidence and established procedures. This systematic approach ensures that decisions are made fairly, transparently, and in accordance with the university's ethical and regulatory framework. Question 15. The risk matrix shows a moderate risk of not meeting enrollment targets for the upcoming academic year. A prominent alumnus has strongly recommended a candidate who has minor discrepancies in their submitted academic transcripts, but whose family has significant financial ties to the university. The admissions committee is aware of the enrollment pressure. What is the most ethically sound and professionally responsible course of action for the admissions committee? Option A. Evaluate the candidate strictly based on the university's published admission criteria, regardless of external recommendations or enrollment pressures, and document the decision-making process thoroughly. Option B. Inform the alumnus that the candidate's application is being reviewed, but subtly suggest that meeting enrollment targets might influence the final decision in favor of the candidate. Option C. Expedite the admission of the candidate by overlooking the minor discrepancies in their transcripts to help meet enrollment targets and appease the influential alumnus. Option D. Create a special exception for the candidate due to their family's financial contributions and the alumnus's recommendation, even if they do not fully meet the standard criteria. Correct answer is A. Evaluate the candidate strictly based on the university's published admission criteria, regardless of external recommendations or enrollment pressures, and document the decision-making process thoroughly. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's immediate financial needs with the ethical obligation to uphold academic integrity and fair admission processes. The pressure to meet enrollment targets can create a conflict of interest, potentially leading to compromised decision-making. Careful judgment is required to ensure that admissions decisions are based on merit and adherence to established criteria, rather than external pressures. The correct approach involves a commitment to the established admission criteria and a transparent process. This aligns with the ethical principles of fairness, objectivity, and academic integrity, which are paramount in any educational institution. By adhering strictly to the university's stated admission requirements and ensuring that all applicants are evaluated consistently, the university upholds its reputation and the value of its degrees. This approach is ethically sound as it prioritizes merit and equal opportunity for all prospective students, preventing any perception of favoritism or undue influence. An incorrect approach that prioritizes meeting enrollment targets by overlooking minor discrepancies in an applicant's documentation is ethically flawed. This action undermines the integrity of the admission process and sets a dangerous precedent. It suggests that rules can be bent for expediency, which can lead to a decline in academic standards and a loss of trust from students, faculty, and the wider community. Such a decision could also be seen as a breach of the university's own regulations and a failure to treat all applicants equitably. Another incorrect approach, which involves creating a special exception for a well-connected applicant without a clear, documented justification that aligns with university policy, is also professionally unacceptable. This demonstrates favoritism and can lead to accusations of bias and unfairness. It erodes the credibility of the admissions committee and the university as a whole, potentially leading to legal challenges or reputational damage. The absence of a transparent and justifiable reason for deviation from standard procedures is a significant ethical lapse. A further incorrect approach, which involves pressuring the admissions committee to accept a candidate who does not fully meet the criteria due to external pressure, is a direct violation of professional ethics and potentially university policy. This action prioritizes external influence over academic merit and fair process. It compromises the autonomy of the admissions committee and can lead to the enrollment of students who are not adequately prepared for the academic rigor of the university, ultimately harming both the student and the institution. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a clear understanding and adherence to the university's admission policies and ethical guidelines. When faced with conflicting pressures, professionals should 1. Reaffirm commitment to established policies and ethical principles. 2. Seek clarification from relevant authorities if policies are ambiguous. 3. Document all decisions and the rationale behind them. 4. Escalate concerns to higher authorities if there is pressure to deviate from ethical or policy standards. 5. Prioritize transparency and fairness in all aspects of the admission process. Question 16. Research into the Alasmarya Islamic University entrance examination process has revealed a scenario where an examiner discovers that one of the candidates whose paper they are about to grade is a close relative. The examiner is aware of the university's strict adherence to merit-based admissions and the importance of maintaining the integrity of its entrance examinations. What is the most ethically and professionally sound course of action for the examiner? Option A. Continue with the grading process without mentioning the relationship, assuming that as long as no overt favoritism is shown, the integrity of the examination remains intact. Option B. Immediately inform the examination board of the relationship and recuse themselves from grading that specific candidate's paper, ensuring it is assigned to another impartial examiner. Option C. Grade the paper as usual, making a conscious effort to be extra fair and objective, believing their professional integrity will overcome any personal bias. Option D. Discreetly provide the candidate with a slightly higher score than their work strictly warrants to ensure they have a better chance of admission, given the personal connection. The correct answer is B. Immediately inform the examination board of the relationship and recuse themselves from grading that specific candidate's paper, ensuring it is assigned to another impartial examiner. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between academic integrity and personal relationships, amplified by the specific context of an entrance examination for Alasmarya Islamic University. The university's commitment to meritocracy and fairness in its admissions process, as outlined in its foundational principles and examination regulations, demands that all candidates be assessed on their own abilities. The examiner's personal connection to a candidate introduces a bias that, if acted upon, would undermine the integrity of the examination and violate the ethical duty of impartiality. Careful judgment is required to navigate this situation without compromising professional standards or the university's reputation. The correct approach involves the examiner immediately recusing themselves from any involvement in the assessment of the candidate they know. This aligns with the ethical principles of fairness, impartiality, and avoiding conflicts of interest, which are implicitly or explicitly part of the Alasmarya Islamic University's examination framework. By stepping aside, the examiner upholds the integrity of the examination process, ensuring that all candidates are evaluated objectively and that the admission decisions are based solely on merit. This action directly addresses the potential for bias and maintains public trust in the university's admissions. An incorrect approach would be to proceed with grading the candidate's paper while attempting to be extra fair, or to grade it as if they didn't know the candidate. This is ethically flawed because the mere existence of the personal relationship creates an unavoidable subconscious bias. The examiner cannot guarantee true objectivity, and any perceived or actual favoritism would be a breach of their professional duty and the university's regulations on fair assessment. Another incorrect approach would be to subtly give the candidate an advantage, such as overlooking minor errors or awarding extra points. This is a direct violation of academic integrity and constitutes academic misconduct. It undermines the principle of equal opportunity for all applicants and devalues the achievements of other candidates. Such an action would be a severe ethical and regulatory failure, potentially leading to disciplinary action and damaging the university's credibility. A further incorrect approach would be to ignore the relationship and grade the paper as usual without any special consideration, either positive or negative. While seemingly neutral, this approach fails to proactively address the conflict of interest. The examiner has a responsibility to disclose potential conflicts that could compromise the fairness of the process, even if they believe they can remain impartial. Failure to disclose and recuse is a dereliction of duty. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear framework. 1. Identify the potential conflict of interest. 2. Assess the impact of the conflict on the fairness and integrity of the process. 3. Consult relevant university regulations and ethical guidelines. 4. Take immediate action to mitigate or eliminate the conflict, which often means recusal. 5. Document the situation and the actions taken. 6. Seek guidance from a supervisor or relevant authority if unsure. Question 17. The monitoring system demonstrates that an applicant for the Alasmarya Islamic University entrance exam has submitted a personal statement that, while compelling, contains a factual inaccuracy regarding their prior academic achievements. The admissions committee member responsible for reviewing this application is aware of the applicant's strong community involvement and potential for growth, but also recognizes the importance of accurate information in the admissions process. What is the most ethically and regulatorily sound course of action for the committee member? Option A. Flag the factual inaccuracy for further investigation by the admissions committee and ensure it is addressed according to university policy before a final decision is made. Option B. Advise the applicant to withdraw their application and reapply in the next cycle after correcting the inaccuracy. Option C. Immediately reject the applicant's application due to the factual inaccuracy, without further consideration of their other qualifications. Option D. Recommend the applicant for admission, noting the factual inaccuracy but emphasizing their other strengths and potential. The correct answer is D. Recommend the applicant for admission, noting the factual inaccuracy but emphasizing their other strengths and potential. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the potential conflict between the university's stated commitment to academic integrity and the pressure to admit students who may not meet the established criteria. The ethical dilemma lies in balancing the need to uphold standards with the desire to accommodate applicants who might have extenuating circumstances or unique potential not fully captured by standard metrics. Careful judgment is required to ensure fairness, transparency, and adherence to the university's admission policies and ethical guidelines. The correct approach involves a thorough and objective review of the applicant's profile, considering all available information, and adhering strictly to the Alasmarya Islamic University's admission regulations and ethical code. This approach prioritizes fairness and consistency, ensuring that all applicants are evaluated against the same established criteria. The regulatory justification stems from the university's own published admission policies, which are designed to maintain academic standards and ensure a qualified student body. Ethically, this approach upholds the principle of impartiality and avoids any appearance of favoritism or undue influence. An incorrect approach would be to bypass the established review process based on a single piece of information or a personal appeal. This fails to uphold the university's admission regulations, which mandate a structured evaluation. Ethically, it violates the principle of fairness by treating this applicant differently from others who have undergone the full process. Another incorrect approach would be to manipulate the data or provide misleading information to justify admission. This constitutes a serious breach of academic integrity and ethical conduct, undermining the credibility of the university and potentially leading to severe disciplinary action. It directly contravenes the university's commitment to honesty and transparency in its operations. Professionals facing similar situations should employ a structured decision-making process. This involves 1. Identifying the core ethical and regulatory principles at play. 2. Gathering all relevant facts and information objectively. 3. Consulting the relevant university policies, guidelines, and ethical codes. 4. Evaluating potential courses of action against these principles and policies. 5. Seeking guidance from supervisors or relevant committees if the situation is complex or ambiguous. 6. Documenting the decision-making process and the final decision. This systematic approach ensures that decisions are well-reasoned, defensible, and aligned with professional standards. Question 18. Comparative studies suggest that academic institutions often face situations where students' religious practices may conflict with mandatory course requirements. At Alasmarya Islamic University, a student enrolled in a core curriculum course finds that a mandatory practical session, scheduled on a Friday afternoon, directly conflicts with their congregational prayer obligations. The student approaches the instructor, expressing their religious concern and requesting an alternative arrangement for the practical session. What is the most ethically and regulatorily appropriate course of action for the instructor to take? Option A. Suggest the student consider enrolling in a different course or deferring the current course until a future semester when the practical session schedule might not conflict. Option B. Immediately arrange a separate, equivalent practical session for the student at a different time, without consulting university policy or the student's specific needs further. Option C. Engage in a dialogue with the student to understand the specific nature of the conflict and explore potential accommodations within the university's existing policies and Islamic ethical guidelines, seeking to find a mutually agreeable solution. Option D. Inform the student that attendance at the practical session is mandatory for course completion and that no exceptions can be made, advising them to manage their prayer schedule around the session. The correct answer is D. Inform the student that attendance at the practical session is mandatory for course completion and that no exceptions can be made, advising them to manage their prayer schedule around the session. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's personal beliefs and the academic requirements of the Alasmarya Islamic University. The challenge lies in balancing the university's commitment to its educational standards and curriculum with the student's right to religious observance and freedom of conscience. Navigating this requires a nuanced understanding of the university's internal regulations, ethical principles of academic institutions, and the broader Islamic ethical framework that guides the university. The correct approach involves seeking a mutually agreeable solution that respects both the student's religious obligations and the university's academic integrity. This would typically involve open communication with the student to understand the specific nature of their religious conflict, exploring potential accommodations within the existing regulatory framework, and consulting with relevant university authorities. The justification for this approach is rooted in the Islamic ethical principle of facilitating knowledge acquisition while upholding religious values. University regulations, by extension, are expected to align with these principles, promoting an environment where students can pursue education without compromising their faith. This approach prioritizes dialogue, understanding, and finding practical solutions that uphold the spirit of both religious observance and academic pursuit. An incorrect approach would be to dismiss the student's concerns outright without investigation or dialogue. This fails to acknowledge the student's right to religious freedom and the university's ethical obligation to accommodate such needs where reasonably possible. It also disregards the potential for finding a compromise that would allow the student to fulfill both their academic and religious duties. Another incorrect approach would be to unilaterally impose a solution that does not adequately address the student's religious conflict, even if it appears to meet the academic requirement. This demonstrates a lack of empathy and a failure to engage in the collaborative problem-solving necessary in such situations. Ethically, this approach prioritizes administrative convenience over the well-being and rights of the student. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. First, actively listen to and understand the student's specific concerns and the religious basis for them. Second, consult the relevant university policies and guidelines pertaining to student conduct, religious accommodations, and academic requirements. Third, engage in open and respectful dialogue with the student to explore potential solutions, considering the feasibility and impact of each option on both the student and the academic program. Fourth, if necessary, seek guidance from senior faculty, academic advisors, or relevant administrative bodies within the university to ensure a decision that is both ethically sound and compliant with university regulations. Question 19. Process analysis reveals that an applicant for the Alasmarya Islamic University entrance exam has submitted a personal statement detailing significant family responsibilities that may have impacted their academic performance in the preceding year. While the applicant meets the minimum academic threshold, there is a noticeable dip in their grades during the period described. The admissions committee is tasked with evaluating this application. Option A. Grant the applicant conditional admission, waiving the need for further scrutiny of the grade discrepancy based on the compelling nature of their personal circumstances. Option B. Advise the applicant to resubmit their application in the following year after they have demonstrated improved academic performance without considering their current situation. Option C. Conduct a thorough review of the applicant's academic records and personal statement, seeking further clarification from the applicant or relevant academic advisors if necessary, to assess the impact of the circumstances on their performance and determine eligibility based on university admission guidelines. Option D. Immediately reject the application, citing the academic performance dip as a clear violation of admission standards, without further consideration of the applicant's personal statement. The correct answer is C. Conduct a thorough review of the applicant's academic records and personal statement, seeking further clarification from the applicant or relevant academic advisors if necessary, to assess the impact of the circumstances on their performance and determine eligibility based on university admission guidelines. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's personal circumstances and the university's established admission policies, particularly concerning academic integrity and fairness to other applicants. The admissions committee must balance empathy with adherence to regulations. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any decision made is both ethically sound and compliant with the Alasmarya Islamic University's entrance exam guidelines. Correct approach involves a thorough, objective review of the applicant's situation against the established criteria, seeking clarification from relevant university departments if necessary, and making a decision based solely on the documented evidence and university policy. This upholds the principle of fairness to all applicants and maintains the integrity of the admissions process. It aligns with ethical principles of impartiality and adherence to institutional rules, ensuring that the university's standards are consistently applied. An incorrect approach that involves overlooking the discrepancy due to sympathy for the applicant's personal hardship would be a failure to uphold the principle of fairness and equal treatment. It could set a precedent for future applicants to exploit personal circumstances to bypass academic requirements, undermining the credibility of the admissions process. Another incorrect approach, which is to immediately reject the application without further investigation or consideration of mitigating factors, might be seen as lacking compassion. While adherence to policy is important, a complete disregard for context could be perceived as overly rigid and unsupportive, potentially violating the spirit of Islamic ethical considerations that often emphasize mercy and understanding. A further incorrect approach, such as fabricating or altering documentation to fit the applicant's situation, represents a severe breach of academic integrity and ethical conduct. This would not only violate university policy, but also constitute a form of deception, which is fundamentally contrary to the values of an educational institution and Islamic ethics. Professionals in admissions should employ a structured decision-making process. This involves 1. Understanding the relevant policies and regulations thoroughly. 2. Gathering all pertinent information objectively. 3. Identifying any conflicts or ambiguities. 4. Consulting with appropriate stakeholders or departments for clarification if needed. 5. Evaluating the situation against established criteria and ethical principles. 6. Documenting the decision-making process and the rationale behind the final decision. 7. Ensuring the decision is fair, consistent, and defensible. Question 20. Regulatory review indicates that during the Alasmarya Islamic University entrance examination, a fellow candidate discreetly offers you access to pre-prepared answers for a significant portion of the exam. This offer is made in a manner that suggests it is a common practice among some students seeking admission. What is the most ethically sound and procedurally correct course of action to take immediately? Option A. Politely but firmly decline the offer, stating that you wish to complete the exam based on your own knowledge and preparation, and then continue with the examination without further engagement on the matter. Option B. Report the peer to the invigilator immediately, without any attempt to decline or understand the situation further. Option C. Accept the offer discreetly to ensure your admission, rationalizing that it is a common practice and necessary for success. Option D. Express concern about the offer, but proceed to use the provided answers to avoid jeopardizing your own chances of admission. The correct answer is A. Politely but firmly decline the offer, stating that you wish to complete the exam based on your own knowledge and preparation, and then continue with the examination without further engagement on the matter. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire for academic success and the university's commitment to academic integrity and fair assessment. The pressure to perform well in a high-stakes entrance exam, coupled with the potential for personal gain or familial expectation, can lead individuals to consider unethical shortcuts. The university's regulatory framework, as implied by the exam's context, prioritizes honesty, fairness, and the accurate evaluation of a candidate's knowledge and aptitude. The correct approach involves upholding academic integrity by refusing to engage in any form of academic dishonesty. This aligns with the core ethical principles of the Alasmarya Islamic University, which would expect candidates to demonstrate their capabilities through legitimate means. Specifically, the The university's guidelines, which are paramount for this entrance exam, would implicitly or explicitly prohibit cheating, plagiarism, or any form of misrepresentation. Adhering to these principles ensures a fair playing field for all candidates and maintains the credibility of the university's admissions process. An incorrect approach would be to accept the offer of assistance from the peer. This action directly violates the principles of academic honesty and fairness. It constitutes academic misconduct, as it involves seeking an unfair advantage and misrepresenting one's own knowledge. Such behavior undermines the integrity of the examination process and the value of the qualification obtained from Alasmarya Islamic University. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the offer but feel pressured to perform exceptionally well, leading to undue stress and potentially compromising one's well-being without resorting to unethical means. While not directly dishonest, this approach fails to address the ethical dilemma proactively and can lead to negative consequences for the student's mental state. A third incorrect approach would be to report the peer without first attempting to de-escalate or understand the situation, which might be seen as overly punitive without exploring less confrontational resolutions, though reporting would ultimately be a necessary step if the peer persisted. The professional decision-making process in such a situation should involve a clear understanding of the university's ethical code and examination regulations. Candidates should prioritize honesty and integrity above all else. When faced with an ethical dilemma, the first step is to recognize the potential for misconduct. The next step is to refuse any unethical proposition clearly and assertively. If the pressure persists or the situation escalates, seeking guidance from a trusted university official or advisor is crucial. The ultimate goal is to navigate the situation in a manner that upholds personal integrity and respects the established rules and values of the institution.